birthday, Sando. Did the players give you any presents?
No. I don't think anyone knew it was my birthday till you guys came in, but yeah, just another day at the office for me. That's it,
You got a cake top.
I was going to say, Phil Harper comes back to work later this week. Will he resume the role that he was in beforehand, or will it be, obviously David Noble stepped in, or will there be some job sharing there now? How will that work?
Yeah, a little bit of job sharing, a little bit. It'd be great to get Phil back, and we're looking forward to having him back at work on Friday. His role's changed a little bit, but he's still football manager, and he'll still be heavily involved on match day, and I guess 90% of the work he was doing before he'll continue to do. And David Noble's role's a little bit adjusted as well, but he's been fantastic in Phil's absence, and he'll continue with his list management role.
So Phil will do a little bit more maybe on match days as well now?
Yep.
In the absence of Dean Bailey?
No, not so much. Rob Harding, who does our forward scout work, and he's in Adelaide twice a week for us, he'll effectively become Dean Bailey on match day. But he's fantastic. He's been great for us in the last 12 months, and he's worked at Geelong and North Melbourne, and his role on match day will be very similar to what Dean's is.
So you knew Rob through your days at the Cavalry, is that correct?
Yeah, days at Geelong, yeah. So we sort of pinched him from Geelong when I got the job, and he's based in Melbourne. Saw about 80 games live last year, does a lot of our trends and obviously opposition analysis. But yeah, he's in Adelaide typically 2 days a week, and yeah, his role will be expanded a little bit in that next sort of 16 weeks while Dean's under suspension.
So he'll be here 2 days a week in that 16 weeks or more?
No, he'll be here more now,
yep.
And he'll be in the box on match day. He'll pretty much be Dean Bailey on match day. Which will be a great experience for him, and yeah, we are confident that he can step up and do that role really well.
Your depth this year, the Crows' depth, I mean, look at all the other teams. Is your depth, I know you've lost Tippett, but a lot of kids have come on. Is it as good as any other team in the comp?
Yeah, we do like our depth, and we've certainly exposed a lot of our younger players in the last 2 weeks to some AFL games, and our plan was by the end of the NAB Cup series that almost every player on our list would have played 2 matches. So we can just from a list management point of view get a bit of a look at what we've got from a depth point of view. So we can confidently call on any of those kids at different parts in the season if we need them.
How many players could you confidently call on, you reckon, by round 1 that could fill a role for you out of your 44 or 45-man squad? Yeah,
obviously we've got some alternate sport rookies who probably are a year or 2 off, and maybe a couple of first and second year guys who are still sort of finding their feet. But yeah, we do bat pretty deep, so it's certainly a good position to be in.
So you go into your mid-30s, you think?
Easily, comfortably. I think we played almost 40 last year.
Yeah.
We had 6 or 7 guys make their debut, so we've got a good deep squad.
Will that be one of your strengths?
Hopefully we don't need to call on it too much. You know, we had a really good 12 months injury-wise, and we're going to go into round 1 almost injury-free, apart from probably Brodie Smith and Nick Joyce. So it's a good position to be in. Hopefully that doesn't get tested too deep, but it's going to be really hard to break into our side, and there's going to be some disappointment from players who don't get selected early in the season. But the great example is a guy like Matthew Wright, who didn't play round 1 for us last year, wasn't in our best 22 at round 1, and then finished the season in our top 10 in our best and fairest. So we've just got to make sure our list stays healthy, stays hungry, keeps putting pressure on each other, and yeah, we should have a good season.
Really, just on your couple of weeks now into the NAB Cup, can you give us a rough guide of how much of the team is settled in your mind for the start of the season? Like how many spots roughly would be up to?
We'll go pretty close to full strength this week. There's, as I said, Brodie Smith won't play with injury, but otherwise we can play, I think, 24 this week, 3 on the bench and 3 subs. So that 24 will be pretty much around the mark. Hopefully, what we'll play, round 1, round 2. So it's time to, we've had a bit of tinkering and we've had a bit of exposure to our younger players, but we probably now have to start settling the side down and get ready for round 1.
In terms of rotations, I think they're still limited this week.
Yeah, we normally average about 160 rotations a week. This week we're limited to 80, so 20 per quarter. So that'd be a good test for us, and the AFL are looking at data for potentially bringing in an interchange cap down the track. So it's a good exposure for us too to just have a look how that works from our point of view as well.
It's pretty significant you manage that?
Well, it went up really quickly too. There was a sort of a 3 or 4 year spike where, you know, we were averaging 40 or 50 a week, and then all of a sudden it got to 100 pretty quick. And then, yeah, we were the #1 rotating side last year, and we averaged about 160 rotations a week. So the AFL are looking to limit that. We understand why they're doing it. We're happy to participate in any sort of testing they want to do, and we'll just see where it goes from there.
Do you have a bit of an idea in your mind what would be the cap? Like, is 80 too low? Is 120 okay?
Yeah, we've done a fair bit of research on it ourselves. I mean, physically, you just can't rotate any more than about what we are doing now anyway. So we have some players, say Jared Petrenko spends 4 to 5 minutes on the ground before he comes off. That's about the limit, we think. You know, you just can't physically rotate any more than that almost, you know. So we've pretty much reached the ceiling, I think. But if the AFL, you know, they're just probably having a look at 80, they might settle on 100, they might just let it go. I mean, hopefully they make the right call there and don't jump at shadows and just think that, you know, they have the right magic number in their head. They should continue to look at it and make sure they make the right decision.
Brad Scott said yesterday, you know, just leave it, no need to tinker with it. Are you in his sort of camp, just let it go?
Yes and no. I think there's been some great rule changes that have made the game better. You know, we all jumped up and down when we had the chopping of the arms rule for defenders. You know, defenders all said, I'm never going to be able to defend again. And that rule settled down pretty quick. That was a good rule change. You know, the circle for the ruckman in the centre bounce was a good rule change. At the time, ruckman said, you know, you're gonna stop us being able to compete anymore. You're just going to get basketballers who are going to just stand there and jump. But that was a good rule change. We don't have any more PCL injuries from ruckman. So sometimes we say too many rule changes. Sometimes the rule changes make the game better, just as long as we make sure that it's the right rule changes. And yeah, we're not just making 5 or 6 a year for the sake of making 5 or 6 a year. You know, I've commented before, you know, soccer's made 2 rule changes in 100 years. We average about 2 a week.
So what's your view on concussions? Obviously been a big talk for the past week or so.
Yeah, my view is leave it with the experts. Probably the coaches are the wrong people to ask in that regard. I mean, I'm fully behind making the correct decision on player welfare, and we just got to make sure we're not making our game under any sort of health risk for people down the track. And I watch closely what's happening in the States with the research that's going on with NFL players, and there's some horrible stories there of you know, brain disease from players with continual head knocks. So it's not my expertise, and I probably shouldn't comment on it. But yeah, I'd prefer to take the conservative approach to concussion rule and make sure we get this right.
Did you get knocked out much in your footy career?
Yeah, plenty, yeah. And I was one of those players that told lies to doctors and said to doctors that I was feeling good, and probably had eight significant concussions through a 20-year career, you know, including junior football. And as much as players tell lies to doctors, there's processes in place now where we take it out of the players' hands. So there's a lot of computer testing that they do now and psychoanalysis stuff, which is really good. And I'm certainly behind the AFL and anything they can do to make the game safer and ensure we don't put players out there who are under any extra risks.
And do you suffer any after effects at all?
I don't think so. Maybe.
Did you get worried when, you know, you and your generation, when you watched Greg Williams talk about how badly it is, that sort of stuff?
Oh yeah, and I think people close to you are concerned. You know, my family was obviously concerned when I had concussions and warned me about going back out, but we are an unusual breed, footballers. We love to compete. The mateship of, you know, going out there when you're injured, but hopefully we can change that mentality a little bit too.
Yeah. Are you worried about whether you'll get effects down the track?
Yes and no. I think I'm okay. I think I got through my career okay, but it is a brutal game at times, and we are exposed without any sort of protective headwear or anything to knocks, but that's the game we play, unfortunately.
Just on the pre-season itself, mate, I mean, there's a couple of games to go, but if you've had your set list you wanted to achieve going into the summer and now, how far through that list have you gone? Have you ticked most of the boxes? Yeah,
we have. I've been really happy with our pre-season. Our boys look great, they look fit. We've just made a couple of little adjustments to how we play, and at times it's looked frustrating for our coaches and our supporters, you know, the way we've played in the first 2 weeks. but we'll hopefully just settle that down in the next 2 weeks and prepare really well for round one. But it's been a good pre-season.
Have you seen the performance of the defensive group in the last couple of weeks, particularly in transition situations?
They need to improve. Yeah, they get Rutten and Riley back this week though, so they get a bit of experience back into that group. And you know, Talia's been he's been sick and he's still played the last 2 weeks. He's had a really nasty virus, and he's one of those players, a bit like I said before with the concussion. He told us the last 2 weeks that he's ready to play, and he probably hasn't been. So we'll certainly settle down our defence a bit this week, get a couple of experienced boys back, and they'll be much harder to play against the next couple of weeks.
Is Luke Brown leading the race for that Dowdy role?
Yes and no. I've really liked his pre-season, but I've liked Laird and I've liked Tambling as well. I've liked Yanch. So there's probably 4 guys who are realistically putting their hand up to take that Dowdy role.
You're confident that Tambling and Yanch can defend well enough to play it? Obviously offensive-minded type player.
Yeah, they're still young and still improving on their game, but yeah, I think over time those boys will be fine.
How do you see Geelong? You're familiar with that club, but are they still a benchmark?
Oh, they are, yeah, they're dangerous. I think they'll be a top 4 side again this year. We had a look at them this morning as a coaching group, and you put up their best 25, they're still very strong. You know, there've been some significant retirements over the last 2 or 3 years, but they're still strong. They're going to be a good side.
What about your mob? 1 year ago from today, how is it different? Is it a different feel about it?
The expectations are certainly different on the group this year, and that's coming from internal and external, but I like that. You know, our guys do drive the standards within the change rooms and at training, and as I said before, it's red hot for spots this year. You have to be in good form to play in this 22, so that's the way it should be. There'll be some disappointment at different times this season, but we're going to call on every player at some point during the season, I'm sure.
You mentioned Matty Riley's one of those guys that didn't play round one, but obviously had a great season last year. Is Aiden Riley one of those guys that might not necessarily be in the absolute best 22, but can really step up for it?
Yeah, he's a good example. Yeah, there's probably a handful of guys, maybe 5 or 6, who might miss out early in the season that shouldn't get disappointed, or they should be disappointed, but they have to pick themselves at the same time as well. So our midfield depth runs deep. You have to be in good form to break into that midfield this season, and there's probably 4 or 5 guys that'll be putting their hand up early in the season for that.
Everyone raves about it. Where does he rate in the club in terms of hardness around the contest?
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, Aiden Riley's going to be a good young player for us, and he's hard. He tackles well. He's aggressive. He wins clearances. Don't want to talk too much about him though, because I wouldn't mind him going under the radar a bit early in the season, and other teams not knowing too much about him. But we certainly like what we're seeing from him at the moment.
And you mentioned your concussions before, and your family sort of warning you and all that sort of stuff. How genuinely was it when they wouldn't ask you to walk away from footy or anything like that?
Oh no, nothing like that. No, it's just sometimes just a worried mother that says, "Are you sure you're okay to play this week?"
Cameron Ellis is old one. You've been impressed with him, and could he play AFL this year?
Yeah, he should debut this year. Yeah, he was playing Eagles reserves last year, but he's one that we'll look to at some point this season. He's still quite raw, and he's probably not in our best 22 right at this moment, but he's exciting young talent. You know, he's going to be a bit of a cult figure for our fans, I think, at some point too. You know, he's just a real natural, very raw, but his raw stuff's very exciting.
He's got a bit of Alan Goods about him.
He's got a bit of everything about him. He's very laconic the way that he sort of plays and trains, and nothing seems to faze him too much. But I see some things that I still don't like that I'm trying to get out of his game. But then he does some things in a game, and I'm really impressed. So he's a work in progress, and he'll be a good player for us.
And what position will he fill ultimately?
Anywhere at this stage, still trying to find that out. You know, he can be a tall midfielder, like you mentioned Adam Goods plays midfield at times, but then he goes forward and takes a mark. But at the moment, we're experimenting with him across half back. So a little bit will be determined where the Eagles play him at SANFL level. But at the moment, I like him as a sort of third tall defender.
What are you trying to get out of his game? What sort of things?
He does switch off a little bit. You got to concentrate at this level for 120 minutes. So sometimes, his mind does sort of wander off a little bit. So just trying to keep his focus, and just some of the, the basic fundamentals of footy, which, he'll take a fantastic mark, then he'll turn the ball over by foot, you know, he'll miss a tackle, or you know, he just switches off for little bits of time, which we're trying to get out of his game. But yeah, his raw stuff's very good.
Brenton, how settled are you in your mindset on your forward structure post Kurt?
No, it's still up for grabs, to be honest. Still, there's a spot there up for grab for someone. In the media, we've talked about it. You guys have talked about it a lot. You know, it's probably out of 2, but realistically, it's probably out of 3 or 4. And I've said all summer, it doesn't have to be a tall that comes into the side. We might go small. We might, you know, go a Carlton type forward line at times. You know, with Walker and 5 smalls. So that won't scare me either.
Is there anyone in your place?
No, neck and neck. Neck and neck.
Beautiful.
Watch that video, it's just a couple of last ones. Watch that video on the website where you were mic'd up at quarter time.
Yep.
What sort of experience was that? I mean, were you aware of it? Was it a distraction?
Not really. We were 6 goals down or 4 goals down or something at quarter time. I probably, yeah, I didn't really even think about it too much. So I know most of it, or some of it was edited, but yeah, sometimes I'm calm, sometimes I'm a bit more heated, but yeah, it's probably a fair indication of what we're like at quarter time and 3/4 time breaks.
Are you all for that sort of an increase in that inner sanctum access?
I am, yeah. I don't mind giving our fans a bit of a look at sort of inner sanctum stuff. Unfortunately, we do have to edit out some of the strategy talk. You know, it's a bit of a free look for the opposition, you know, because it's on a public website. Opposition can get a look at, you know, how we talk and our strategy and game plan. So, unfortunately, we have to edit a fair bit of that stuff out. But it's good for our fans to see a bit of passion and see some of the basic stuff that we talk about with our players.
You still have it on file, so, you know.
Yeah, it's good for the coaches too. We can give each other a bit of feedback. Watching that back, I didn't actually coach much, so I mostly just yelled at players, you know. It's probably better if I give instruction rather than just vent some anger. So that's a good coaching tool for me too.